Now let's talk about air taxes, because criticism has been growing all day about the increase in tax paid by air passengers, which is going to come into force on Monday. This is air passenger duty. It's paid by all travellers as they leave the UK, and in some cases next week it's going to rise by more than 50%.
Well, it's a hefty increase for some flights. These are the figures for someone flying in economy class. Flights up to 2,000 miles, mainly to Europe, would go up by £1 from £11 to £12.
A journey up to 4,000 miles, which can include many flights to North America, will increase from £45, as it is at the moment, to £60.
Flights between 4,000 and 6,000 miles will go up from £50 to £75. That includes destinations such as Thailand or India.
And the longest haul flights, those more than 6,000 miles, will increase from the current £55 to £85. That, of course, includes places like Australia and Argentina. Now, these, to remind you, these are all the price if you are flying in economy. Anyone flying premium economy, or even better than that, as it were, is going to pay considerably more. So those are the figures that come into effect on Monday. Let's go to Heathrow and speak to John Holland-Kay, who is from the airport operator BAA. Hello, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
We've just given a rundown of the prices as they will be from Monday. Do you have a problem with the tax per se, or is your argument that actually the new figures that come into effect next week are too high?
We think that not only are they too high, but they're also going to do enormous damage to the British economy. The tax that we have in the UK, even today, before the increase, is the highest in the world, and it's considerably higher than we see in other European competitive countries.
But are people really going to try to reroute their flight to make a flight less convenient to them to save another £20, £30?
Well, we should think both about the tourists leaving the UK, who do, of course, have choices to go via other airports, and it seems perverse that we should be encouraging them to do that rather than keeping the benefits of aviation in the UK. We should also think about people coming to Britain who are bringing jobs with them. I'm thinking particularly of tourists to the UK. It's an enormous sector for Britain. It should be one of the sectors that is helping to dig us out of our economic situation, and yet we're deterring people from making that journey. And the people who lose out with that are the retailers, the hotels, and if I give you an example of that, look at China, which is one of the booming economies. A lot of Chinese people are looking to travel internationally. They're looking to come to Western Europe. And if they're choosing between France and the UK, for France is very welcoming to overseas tourists. They charge only €4 per passenger. So for a family of four, that's less than £15. Coming to the UK, they'll be paying £200. And we can see the impact that has on inbound tourism. For the UK, the latest figures are that only 100,000 Chinese tourists came here, where 700,000 went to France. And that's a really bad message for what Britain is trying to achieve, and it sends a message that Britain is closed for tourism.
And I assume you make representations on this point to government when you can. What response do you get? Why do they say to you, we have to have these taxes? Do they give you a good reason as to what the money is being spent on? What's the argument that you hear?
We all know that the government needs to raise income to help us in this financial situation. But we think that taxing aviation, taxing tourists, taxing business people who are trying to go overseas and get new export orders is a really bad way of doing that. This is a policy that was inherited from the previous administration. We think the government needs to review it and look at making ourselves more competitive for tourists and for business people.
Well, thank you very much for being with us from a very noisy Heathrow, inevitably. John Holland-Kay, thank you, who's from the airport operator BAA.